Well, good morning and welcome to Konnect to Thrive Mastermind with our guest today, Janine Bolon. Janine will speak to the thriving solopreneur. Nurture your business in just 4 hours a week. Wow, that's cool. In today's mastermind, we will focus on how a single, well-run business can be profitable without working yourself into burnout. It is possible to do what you love and get paid for it as long as you make sure to work on your business for 4 hours a week. Janine Bolon has always loved figuring out how things work. A scientist from the beginning, she craved to dig into the mysteries of life and understand why things are the way they are. After working in the pharmaceutical industry for 15 years, she dropped out of corporate America to homeschool her 4 children. God bless. She has always had a side business in her life and shares with other business owners and creatives how to manage a well-lived life of children, family, friends, and clients while not suffering from burnout. Her 12 books, 87 online courses, 4 podcast programs, and syndicated radio show all express her desire to share her systems and routines with others. Please join me in welcoming our speaker today, Janine Bolon.
Randy, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And David, thank you so much for having me on this mastermind. And so I'm a college professor from way back, and I believe in giving you content quickly and effectively, and then opening it up for questions, because I feel that questions help you define where you are. And so we're just going to go ahead and cut to the chase, as they like to say. And yes, do not worry. This is a PowerPoint presentation, but I will go quickly. I do not read my slides. I promise you, because I know you can go back and listen to the recording. So the Thriving Solopreneur, how to nurture your business in 4 hours a week. Let's just get to it. Here are the books that are available on Amazon. And the only reason that I threw them down on my carpet just to show you was proof that when I say I wrote 11 books, I did, but some are out of print because of, the age and the times of things. I started writing when I was in like 2005. Mostly my corporate experience was that of a laboratory rat, as we like to say. I was an analytical biochemist in the pharmaceutical industry, and I was in automation and robotics. So I saw work as systems and automation. And so that came into play when it came to the 4-hour-week system that I'll teach you. In 1996, my world changed. I got a flu that wouldn't go away. And after 10 years of marriage, I found out I was pregnant. Now that was a shocker, and that really derailed the corporate dream that I had. I was internationally known as an automation and robotic chemist. We were working on the AIDS virus at the time, and nobody knew about it as HIV. And so we were trying to protect people. And so that's what I was involved in. And for whatever reason, they really didn't want a pregnant woman walking around the lab working on such a fun little virus. And so I dropped out of the workforce to raise my family, which caused our income to drop 54%. I became a scholar. I read every book I could on how to save money, how to be thrifty, how to go about investing, and ended up teaching what we call the 60-40 rule. The 60-40 rule is something you can learn about later. I will give you links to that, and I will explain in just a moment why I'm talking about this system. It's because I want you to make sure that you do not go into debt for your business. Now, if you're one of those people who you are already in debt in your business, this will help you get out of debt. We want you to live debt-free. That is the number one stressor on business owners, is the fact that you are in debt. I was known as a financial first responder for over 20 years. And you can go to my website, which is financialfirstresponse.com. Now, of course, this morning, right before I was getting ready to talk to you folks, my website homepage decided to act up and be silly. And so instead of clicking that beautiful big red button I built for you, go up here to start here. And what will happen when you do that is you will go to an online course that will give you my book for free. It will give you videos for free. All of this was done in 2020 in an empty hotel conference room where I built out this course for you. So my biggest thing is, if you are in debt and you are running a business, your number one priority, get out of debt as quickly as you can. This is what it looks like, the outline. And so it will help you with the Mindful Money program, which we talk about. I also give you access to my 3-minute money tips and videos that we have there. And so that's my first thing, is if you're in debt, your first focus is to get yourself out of debt and start working on that. So now we're going to talk about, all right, what you really came to hear, which was the 4 hours a week that you need to be working on your business, not in your business. So forgive me for being very basic, because many of you have been in business for a long time, but I was raised in Japan. And one of the things they always talked about is it never hurts to go back to the noodles. Sometimes going back to noodles is what you need to do when you're working on your soba, as they like to say. So when I go back to my noodles, I always go back to my very first occupation that I had, which was raising earthworms for bait shops. Yes, I was that kid. I would get on my bike and I would take pounds and pounds of earthworms to different bait shops and sell them in southern Missouri. But one of the things that I like to share that story with you about is you can start very small and then you have things that you move up on. And that is in 2020, I had already run about 17 businesses and sold them for a profit. 3 of them were out, crash and burn, like literally just failures, epic failures. So I have epically failed, and I learned more in those epic failures than I did in the other 14 that were successful. But in 2020, there was a huge shift, in case you hadn't, you were asleep and you were at Van Winkle and didn't know what happened. And our world was drugged, kicking and screaming into the digital age. If you were still a calendar that you used on paper and you printed everything off, you were kicked into the digital age over the last 2 years. We have seen such huge transformations and shifts. And I just wanted to alert you to this one. My kids always laugh at me, but I think you can appreciate this fact. Did you ever think in your entire lifetime that these 2 events would happen? And both of them did in the last 2 years. Number one, the federal government would pay you money back. Did you ever think you would ever see that? Number 2, that you could take a picture with your phone, that's big as it is, but take a picture with your phone of a check and your bank would go, no problem, deposited. So realize that that huge shift that we have just gone through, and I cannot stress it enough, the digital, going from analog to digital, is going to require us as business owners to make that shift too. And if you feel like you're behind, or if you feel like you're struggling, well, guess what? Our world is upside down from what you knew before. And the 20 and 30 years of business that you run before, it's not like you have to can it, because business is business and people are people, and you know people. And so you'll be able to do well in your business. But just realize, if some days you wake up and you're more stressed than usual, or you have more anxiety than usual, it's because of this huge shift, okay? So whether you're using spreadsheets on Google, whether you're using Google Sheets or you're using Excel or Apple numbers, I don't care. We're all in the same boat. And I just wanted to encourage you as an entrepreneur that Thomas Jefferson said 2 important things. He said, the first one was, as long as we have farmers, and as long as we have entrepreneurs, this country will survive and thrive. So realize that you are helping America. And I know that may seem like way too big, way too huge relative to other things, but honestly, that is what you are doing. So if you feel a little tired, if there are times where you're a little more anxious than normal, realize that you're also kind of carrying the country as well, because entrepreneurs feed capitalistic societies. Okay. So what's this thing that we're talking about? I had this said to me, honestly, the first 15 years that I was in making my own businesses and an entrepreneur, people would always say, now, are you working on your business or are you working in your business? And this was my response. What are you talking about? I had no idea. I had no idea what they were saying. I didn't understand what the difference was in that itty bitty little preposition. And so finally I sat down and said, okay, I'm going to define this for myself. What does this mean? So when you are working in your business, that is what makes you the money, right? That's when you're meeting with your clients. That's when you're getting paid, working in your business. That's like being a technician. As I like to say to myself, that's when I'm digging the earthworms and I'm driving them to the stores and I'm dropping them off. That's working in my business. It's the technician part of the job. It's what brings in the money, okay? But what's working on your business? Working on your business is what we're going to spend the rest of the time talking about, because working on your business is, how do you get in the next client? How are you feeding your prospects? How are you connecting with those people that are on social media with you? And what are you doing to keep your intellectual capital between your ears growing? Because as entrepreneurs, we're always growing. I think that's what we enjoy most about being an entrepreneur, is the fact that it's never boring. So let's talk about the 4 hours a week that you need to have in your calendar. This is Janine. I have to have it in my calendar because if it is not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. Talk to my kids. They know this about me. And so what you want to do is spend an hour a week doing prospecting. We'll talk about that in a minute. An hour a week doing follow-up. An hour a week connecting with people. And I like to do that through direct mail. I am part of Send Out Cards, so we can talk about that later. And you want to spend an hour a week training yourself. And if you're somebody who has a team like me, I have a team of 9 people that help me with my broadcasting company. You're spending an hour training your team. Now, this is how important it is that you stay connected with folks. A lot of people like to use birthdays. I'm one of them. Because I'm in direct mail and direct mail marketing, I go ahead and I have a link directly on my calendar every morning at 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time. If you were to take a camera into my house, you would see that I would be singing to my phone. Do I have a good voice? Do I sing well? Absolutely not. But I sing happy birthday to everybody on Facebook. Why? Because I want to stay connected with these people. And the best way to do it is on their birthday because they're not expecting it. Much less are they expecting me to sing to them. They think I'm too busy. They think I'm too big of a business owner. They think I'm too elevated. Some people are like, oh, you're an author. You don't have time for me. Well, you bought my book. Are you crazy? Of course I'm going to talk to you. And I'm definitely going to sing happy birthday to you. And this is how I get their address. After I'm done singing, I'm like, I wanted to send you a card, but I don't have your address. Can you send me your address? And this is how I'm building my addresses for my authorship. Now, one of the fun things about this is sometimes people will say, oh, Janine, your message was enough. Don't worry about it. Well, I don't dig for it. I don't go after them. I don't chase them down for their address. What I do is I catch them next year and then next year. And after the 3rd year, they're catching on to the fact that maybe I really do want to send them a birthday card. So this is one of the fun ways that you can go about prospecting and you're not selling. The next one is consistent effort. This is something that can get pretty painful, and I highly recommend that you get yourself a buddy, you hire a coach. I don't care who it is, but you need somebody in your corner because as every entrepreneur who has been in the business longer than 3 years will tell you, is lonely. There are times where you feel like it's you against the world and you don't know what to do next. And so that consistent effort is necessary. And I highly, highly recommend that you ask people, ask for their address, for their suggestions, for their wisdom, for their knowledge. Ask a lot of questions. The reason I focus on this is I was raised in an environment where whenever I asked a question, I was only allowed one. I could only ask one question because I would ask questions indefinitely because I was that curious of a kid and I was shut down very early in life. Now I ask questions for a living when I interview people for my podcast programs. And I absolutely love that part. But if you've been shut down and if you don't ask a lot of questions because you don't want to appear stupid, believe it or not, people actually think you're very wise when you ask a lot of questions. It actually has the absolute different effect. And as many of you know who are in service-based industries, if you do not ask enough questions, you won't be able to serve your community as well as you would like. No matter what your business is in, I highly recommend that you get people's addresses. Direct mail is something that I have found a lot of success in. People constantly come on to organizations like this and they will say, hey, Janine, I got your letter, or hey, Janine, I got your card, or something like that. And it gives a lot of exposure for you that you may otherwise not have. I have found that this is by far the best marketing dollar for myself is my direct mail campaigns that I use. So let's talk about prospecting. And I want to go old school with this. Why? Because number one, it's fun. And number two, everybody has it. This is what I like to call prospecting 2.0, because everybody thinks that it's very high tech, when in actuality, you need 3 pencil cases. And these 3 pencil cases are going to be your salvation. And let me explain how they're going to help you clear out your office and at the same time help you prospect. You're going to take these pencil cases and my computer is doing weird things. One moment, please. Okay, you can look up this article on my personal website, JanineBolon.com. You cannot Google this. You have to actually type it in because we are in Google jail. We got hit by a bot and Google put us in jail for a year. So you have to technically write this in here. But my book and a lot of this information you will find in there. You're going to label these boxes, box number 1, box number 2, and box number 3. This is a very sexy system. I want to let you know it's very high tech. And what you're going to do is you're going to take all those business cards that you have floating around in boxes. I had a salesman who had 5 shoeboxes full of business cards. It took him 3 years, but using the system, he got through all those boxes of business cards. You're going to stuff them all in box number 1. And then once, when you have that 1 hour a week that you're going to be doing prospecting, you are going to get on the phone, and you're going to start texting people if they have their cell phone, or emailing people. And you're going to contact every person that you can, as many people as you can, in an hour. And then you're going to shift it to box number 2. And after that, you're going to spend another hour a week in box number 2. And then 2 weeks later, you're going to do box number 3. I have an article that lists out this prospect. It's also listed out in my book, The Thriving Solopreneur, which you can get for free on Amazon. So feel free to go to The Thriving Solopreneur by Janine Bolon and get it for free on your Kindle. And it lists out exactly this process of every 2 weeks, you're contacting these people. After the 3rd box, the 3rd time that you are sending that message out and they haven't contacted you, throw it into the recycle bin. You don't want to have to chase people, but at the same time, you do want to rekindle these relationships. And so this is something that I do. Every time I find a business card, it goes into box 1. It's a kind of an organizational system. And then I have an hour a week where I'm just going through business cards and talking to people. Why? Because after 2020, who knows what they're doing, right? Everybody's shifted. Everybody's had to change. A lot of people have moved. A lot of times I'll say, hey, I got your card back in the mail. That's one of the things that I love about the sending cards system, whatever one you choose to use, because I get return cards back. And when I get return cards, I always have another reason to contact them and say, hey, what did I do wrong? And that's when I find out people have moved, and I keep those relationships going. The next one that I would like to talk about is, a lot of people ask, what should I charge? And one of the things that I like to remind people about is just do the math. Sit down with yourself and do the math. Take into account the time that you're taking to do certain things. Take into account what is you're wanting to have for profitability, and actually create business plans where you have planned profitability. Because all of this prospecting, all of this work that we're talking about, connecting with people and working with people, isn't going to happen if you can't keep yourself in business. And the 2 areas that will crush you is, number 1, if you dig yourself into debt with your business, and number 2, if you're not making yourself get enough money, if you don't have enough profitability going on in your businesses. So those are the 2 lessons that are very basic. Like we say, it's all going back to the noodles, but I wanted to share with you those two big points and 2 big questions that people have. Now, if you're an author, there's another thing that you can do. If you write a book of any kind, whether it's a 100-page book that is a lead magnet, that is kind of your business card on steroids, or whatever, I have a project I'm working on for the next year where I'm asking authors, I want to interview you for book number 12 that I'm writing. And so that's my little plug there. You can reach back around to me. But the last thing is you have 4 hours a week that you're going to be working on your business to keep your connections. You spend an hour a week doing prospecting. You do an hour a week of follow-up where you make sure that you're connecting with people. As your business grows, that follow-up is going to become more and more extensive. You may have to hire out teams to help you with that follow-up. And then the 3rd one is connection. Now, what do I mean? I spend an hour a week on social media, and that's it. I actually set a timer. I have teams of people that connect with people on Facebook and LinkedIn, but I personally only spend an hour a week. I do want to keep those relationships going, but until I really work to get them offline. If you want to learn from me how I go about getting my people from LinkedIn and Facebook to online through Calendly, I'd be happy to chat with you about that. But you also have somebody that you can talk to that's been on the show before, Janice Porter, who is very good at being able to help people get offline. So you have multiple people here, different perspectives that will be glad to assist you with that. But social media can totally chew up your time as a solopreneur. That will just kind of kill your creativity. And we don't want that to happen. So budget your time, set timers like I do. So when the alarm goes off, I wrap up that last message and I send it off and I walk away. Literally, I physically walk away, put down my phone and go do something else physically so that I'm not encouraging myself to misbehave on social media. And that's all I wanted to share with you as far as the 4 hours a work week that you put into your business as far as working on your business. I'd like to open it up to questions so that you guys can ask me about systems and automation, and we can attack these problems with where you are.
Go ahead, Randy.
Janine, first of all, that was great. Great pace. I really loved it. And I'm a little slow on the uptake on something. Could you just walk me through the 3 boxes and the 3 steps to move the business cards? I just wanted to make sure that I didn't misunderstand that.
I have a tendency to skip sometimes when I'm doing the 3-box system. And so I believe it's not you being slow. I believe it's me.
It's not you, it's me.
Right. Exactly. It's a 2-week process. So you have the first time you contact the person, you contact them, then you put it in box number 2 and you wait 2 weeks. And then you put in box number 3. And I skipped that step. The reason for that is because you can get the book online, the Thriving Solopreneur. You can get it for free. And when you get that book for free, I list it out, and I also give you scripts. I also give you the scripts that you can use in your text messaging or in your Facebook messaging, LinkedIn messaging as well. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And this is and to be clear, Janine, you're talking about a new contact, if you will, a new business card, not somebody or would you flush me after 3 boxes?
This
Everybody would love to do that.
All right.
I'm glad
I love it.
Thanks, Zip.
Be careful, Zip, or he'll mute you.
Yeah, I have the power.
Go ahead, Janine.
For me, these can be business cards that are 5 or 6 years old. Because like that one sales professional, he had 5 shoe boxes full of business cards. And he goes, seriously, you'd go through all of them? I said, yes, I would. Because those people handed you a card. You have a connection with them. Don't throw it away. That's gold. That's warm. Some people say, oh, it's a cold connection. I disagree. You can actually snap a picture and say, how old is this business card? I found it. And people will love just to reminisce, if nothing else. Right. And so it makes a warm lead. Now, when it comes to you personally, David, of course I wouldn't flush you. We've been online together, dude. We've actually had a Zoom meeting. So yeah, those are important people.
Yeah. So once we're connected, there's a different path, but I understood that. Zip actually, Zip made a comment. Zip, are you not want to come on, be spotlighted here, or are you doing something that you're in your underwear or what?
Oh, he's in the car.
No, I'm driving like I usually am on a Friday.
Okay, well, don't get in a wreck, but
right. No, I won't be in a wreck.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Janice had her hand up, David.
Okay, well, just 1 second. Zip made a comment, and then he says, I don't like to throw out cards. Once one of my best customers came from calling an old card. Someone new was there. Did you have anything else, Zip? You had opened up your mic.
Oh, no, that was the only thing. I just figured since I just wanted to touch base and say that was one comment, and then just give you a hard time.
Okay. Well, that's normal. Zip, I won't let him do the zippity doo-dah, but basically Zip is a multi-faceted person that is always working in his business and making attempts to work on his business. But as you can see, he's in the car, so focusing on his business, probably ought to carve out 4 hours a week for that. But we can talk about that offline, Zip. Okay, so let me do this. Janice, you want to, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you. I love listening to Janine. You can't keep up with her. She's amazing, but she has so much valuable information. But you did make me think, Janine, about when I made this attempt a few months ago to clean out my office, and I found boxes of business cards from, oh my God, they must be 10 years ago. And I decided I needed to go fresh and I needed to get rid of them all. And now you're making me think, oh my God, I shouldn't have. However, to your point, I think what I was thinking was there are so many people that I have access to that I've met and I've connected with on LinkedIn, or I've connected with on Facebook. And I've created a system for my Facebook people for birthdays and getting addresses and so on. LinkedIn, I think that's where now, because I threw all those business cards away, I think that what I would do, and tell me if this probably serves the same purpose. Export my list of LinkedIn connections and start going through them in a similar way by looking at them on LinkedIn, seeing how best to connect with them, and just say, hey, like, I think we connected in like or in 2002. What are you up to these days? I see you're doing this. Is this up to date? Like, and start a conversation that way. Will that serve the same purpose, or have I thrown away millions of dollars worth of prospecting business?
No, you can definitely do it that way, but I would hire that out and I'd have it all scripted. I'd hire that out.
Yes.
But for you, start on a sequence so that when somebody wants to connect with you, that you have a VA that's going on. And if you come onto LinkedIn and you say, hey, Janine, I want to connect with you here on LinkedIn, it's not me speaking to you. I've written out scripts for like 5 or 6 of our points that will go to you. And basically those scripts are all about you getting to know me. I'm never selling in any of that. And then at the end, it's like, would you prefer to get on a Calendly call, a Zoom meeting, or do you want me to give you a phone call? I eventually ended up trying to get them offline. And so that has been one of the best things that I've ever done with LinkedIn. And just realize the numbers are only 40% of people actually check their LinkedIn on a daily or weekly basis. But every 2 or 3 months, people are checking LinkedIn. And what's interesting about that is I'll have people go, oh my gosh, I had no idea, because they see 4 or 5 messages that my VAs put through there. And then they're coming on immediately. So that's where I'd put your energy, is anytime somebody says, I want to be your friend on Facebook, or I want to be your LinkedIn, have a VA that's pulling those people and doing that. Now, this may not be true for everyone, but when Facebook started their dating profiles, and you'll see on there that I'm listed as single, that became challenging for me, because all of a sudden I had men from all over the world wanting to be my next partner. And so what I had to end up doing was, if you're male, forgive me for this is totally sexist, and I apologize, but that's because of the AI. Go to LinkedIn and connect with me there, because my VAs know if you're male and you try to connect with me on Facebook, I won't do it unless I've met you on Zoom. And so that's just one of the problems of modern AI work. So I just throw that out there as an added bonus feature to my guys, that I do want to connect with you. Just go to LinkedIn. It's easier for me to deal with that.
Great.
Janine, I just tried to connect to the thrivingsolopreneur.com. And it's getting a server error.
That's because you have to go to JanineBolon.com.
Okay.
Yeah. The Thriving Solopreneur got attacked by massive bots. We're struggling right now. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Randy, if you look at the chat, you can click on it. I put a hot link there for JanineBolon.com.
Beautiful, David. Thank you.
So just click on that.
Thank you, David.
And then just bring up the browser, and then when we're done, it'll be you can go back to it. So
got it.
Don't do
Thank
that
you.
now, but yeah. Anyway,
No, I won't. Thanks.
I always
have a question.
I always tell people, if you have links that you want people to pay attention to on the Zoom, go ahead and post it as an HTTPS, hot link with the website, and then that way, when even if you save the chat, it won't be a live link. You'll still have
right.
to
Yep.
So,
you can still cut.
I have a question.
Go ahead, David. By the way, was that
Ricky?
Ricky.
That was Ricky.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Ricky Jean Wright. Yeah, I told him about you, Ricky, but I told him that you were running late. So let me spotlight you here. And Ricky, meet Janine. Janine, meet Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
I see you. I see me too. Well, I have a question about the 3 boxes. And I've recently tried to, the last several years, move more into the digital age and have a business card scanner on my phone. So instead of taking the business card, I scan it. So now I'm getting less business cards because I'm scanning them into a business card scanner. So I guess I'd have to come up with some creative way to have a digital box instead of.
Well, yeah, it's just create your own system. The system you create for yourself will work, right? Because you've created it, it'll work best for you. This was helping people clean out a closet. But for you, especially the folks that are starting to do the scanning, because it automatically loads it to your contacts, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that's much easier. But you want to make sure that you're connecting with those people. So yeah, let me know what you decide to do. I'd love to hear from you when you come up with a system that works for you. And if you don't mind, I'd be glad to interview you on my podcast, and then we could put you up as an article. I love helping people with different systems, different perspectives.
Well, one of the problems that I had was finding an accurate credit card scanner, because sometimes it would not get all the information. And so I had to sort of trial and error, find a better one and a better one. And usually what happens is the free ones are not good. You have to go ahead and buy one. So anyway, I just was throwing that out, because you did mention moving from to the digital world. And I was thinking, wow, and she still uses pencil boxes.
Oh, you bet. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of old school stuff that still works for my brain, right? But at the same time, I'm highly digital as well. So yeah, you guys work your business the way it works best for your brain. Just realize that there are systems and processes that need to be created. And that's why, Ricky, seriously, man, when you figure out how you want to do that with your digital stuff, I'd love to learn it from you and then share it with my people.
Yeah, one of the things that and by the way, David Robinson, did you open up your mic? You want to go ahead and ask your question? I'll get back to mine when.
Yeah, I wanted to share my life. Prospecting 1 hour a week. My prospecting is 40 to 50 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
My follow-up is probably 2 to 3, more than that, 5, 6, 8 hours a week. Connecting, in fact, I attended yesterday because it's a bit of a hole, but kind of a PhD in social media that incorporates everything from Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. And it was the need to learn effectively. They're all like individual programming languages, and I've written HTML, Perl scripts, go back to the days, hell, I could even read hex code. But each one of these has their own programming mechanisms, their own programming languages, their own ways of doing them, steps and process. So I did this. So I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate all that knowledge from all of these tool sets, which all have to be apparently incorporated today into your digital world. And then on top of that, whatever training, which is always extensive, always going on when you're in the healthcare industry. I mean, I'd love to get to a 1 hour prospecting situation, but I probably make individually a slow week would be 1,000 to 1,200 calls. That would be a slow week in terms of me being busy. So I'm struggling with how you actually get to a point where your business would just where you could move tactically into driving it across the finish line when so much of my time is just consumed by prospecting.
So Janine, how do you react to that? I want to hear that, because
you're right. Exactly. No, you're absolutely on point. Until I hired a VA, I got an executive assistant. I now have 9. So that's what I ended up having to do. Was if I was going to maintain my profitability, if I was going to maintain the growth that happened after, you hit that 7 years, and the systems that got you to the 7-year mark are not going to get you into the growth phase that you have to jump that gap. They even have books written on it, called it Jumping the Gap. And I knew I had to hire out. And so that's what I started, because I had systems and processes already in place that I was personally doing. I started moving those over to VAs. And that's why everything that you see coming from me is actually my words, my language, but now VAs and stuff are shipping that out. And so that's what I would recommend on some of that.
I'd love to get to that point where I could actually afford to hire somebody to do something like that. So
okay,
let me talk to that point.
Well, let me talk to that point, David. Let me talk to that point. I got data. Okay, I'm a scientist. All right. So I was terrified, okay, because I didn't feel I was making enough money to be able to warrant a VA. Okay, I was terrified to even do it. So I made a contract with her where I would only hire for 40 hours a month. Okay. And within that first month, I tripled my business because I was not having to do all the details. So I I would be very specific and be very regimented about how much you hire or move out. And then as I gave her more and more stuff, my business started growing and growing. And that's where the growth happened. So I recommend a book by Michael Hyatt called My World Class Virtual Assistant. And I gave a copy of the book to the lady I was getting ready to hire, who was a team. That's another thing. I recommend that you hire somebody who has a team of VAs under them, like somebody who is a business owner like yourself. And then you give them the book, you have the book, and we went through chapter by chapter as we were walking through my business model. And she and I were building how we were going to bridge the transfer of information and systems. And it took us 6 months of slowly and dedicating an hour a week to doing that. But it is incredible now how I'm able. Now, also, when I was doing the 4-hour-a-week system, I was educating people who had never run businesses before on how you go about working on your business, not in your business. And so that was part of it as well. So I can understand, though, David, when you get to where you are at the level you are, it's time to start handing things off. And that is terrifying. I remember being there, but Michael Hyatt's book will seriously help you in the transition of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Yeah.
But David, we also have to remember in insurance, there's things that we have to do ourselves, period.
That's it.
Because we are fiduciary responsibility. We
That's
were
right.
one of the few, besides the health industry, the insurance industry was also considered essential workers during the time when we weren't supposed to be traveling during COVID, that I printed off my license and had in my car in case I ever got pulled over, because we are an essential business, because there's things that we cannot hand off to the VA, because I've looked into that. There are things that they do.
Right. There's
but-
new regulations just actually
Mhm.
passed related to even using third parties for sourcing. I mean, it was just announced that we can't go and hire a third party now to create leads for us. We have to basically, and we're working within an agency, and I'm you can see of 22 agents here, all very, very highly specialized, incredibly trained. And we had a big meeting about this morning, how we're going to have to move from being into now also marketing. So where we actually go through a funnel management mechanism, where we were getting to prospects that were at best lukewarm, that then it would cause this thousands of calls. And when you have this number of people, you're talking 25, 30,000 calls. We've got to now figure out how to fill that void, because we can't buy leads anymore. We can't actually go to a third party. It's been outlawed by the government. And so now we're in geez, how are we going to do it ourselves? So we're going to actually form up our own marketing department here and get involved. So it's added another dimension of how we go about strictly prospecting. Add into that upgrading into a digital media age, with hiring assistants. I mean, we're all laughing now. It's like maybe we give our digital stuff to our 19-year-old daughter who's home for the summer, who's getting free room and board. So what the hell, right?
Right.
And probably knows some of these tools better than we'll ever know them. So we're into that level of conversation right now of how we adapt to this changing situation and changing way that we can even do business. And this is beyond digital. This is legislative stuff that's coming at us, right? So all of the above. So and even to the point of how we hire into people who work for us, and rules related to them and what things they have to have, because you are strictly highly regulated now. And you don't want the regulators calling on you or having the wrong person make a call or make the wrong representation. So it's an interesting dynamic right now between you and I, and I'm wrestling with it myself.
So without drilling down on all of the challenges of government and health insurance, all I can say here is, and Karen's, we've been together for quite a while, right? So I will just say life is about challenge and support, and it's not I can't, it's how can I? And
That's it.
so the key really here is The fundamentals I hear from Janine and the fundamentals we're talking about still apply. It's just, how do I do it? How do I implement those? And she gave us a good solution, is to say, but the one thing don't miss in this, because I think what she's given us is extremely powerful, albeit simple, albeit back to the noodles, right? I mean, it's simply that we need a system, we need a process. If it's her 3 boxes, if it's but we do need to do these and figure out. And so if the goal is, if your scale of the activities that she's defined in those 4 hours, and I'm going to say this, and then Janine, you're the expert here, you're talking, I want you to correct me if I've gotten it wrong. But my point is, if you're already outside those boundaries with hours, the key is, how can I get my time? Because you've heard me say it over and over and over again, if you've been part of this group, is your most valuable asset is your time, period. Bill Gates can't buy yesterday. So buying a VA or investing in a VA to get back your priceless asset, which is your time, is something that needs to be considered. And I think that, we all have blocks from our history, from, the unknowns. And the first step is the things that she's talking about. And then it's, how can I implement that? Is that fair to say, Janine? I mean, I'm going to give it back to you. I'm not taking over your presentation here. I think it's brilliant.
No, it's the challenge. And to David and to Karen, I work with financial planners and those sorts of certified financial planning and estate attorneys. So when you talk about legalization and litigation, I am highly aware of how you guys have to do that. And so when I would go into their organizations and start talking to them about how they would go about doing this, I would get that thrown up immediately. Now, just realize it's blocking your creativity, right? So when you start talking about, yeah, but we were just told this, well, to David's point, you just got this morning. You're still in shock, right? Give yourself the shock blanket, get your hot cocoa and just sit there for a minute and just whine for a good 15 or 20 minutes. Damn it. Why did this have to happen? Blah, blah, blah. And then once you can clear that in whatever way you do that, then you move forward with okay, well, now that this has happened, what are we going to do? And already your organization is on it. You guys have got a funnel plan. You're working on the marketing. But the thing is always that we talked about not getting burnout. And the mindset that will cause burnout faster than any other mindset is, okay, this has happened. So now I have to work harder. I got to work more. I got to make more of this. And whenever you answer a challenge with action, you are in a burnout mindset. When you answer a challenge with, I need 2 hours to go think about this so I can build out a system or something, then you're acting on a challenge with inspiration. And that's how you keep yourself from being in burnout.
That's brilliant. And frankly, I love it. I mean, because I have that problem myself. I mean, I constantly start looking at the pile or the mountain in front of me, which is then, and saying, how do I climb it? When in fact, I need to step back. And so that's just the step back, engage your frontal lobe, look at some creative opportunities, and then run, come up with a way. And, if the first attempt doesn't work, come up with another one. Who else has any questions? This is great conversation for Janine. I think that it's very, I'm learning a lot here. Anybody else? Just open your mic. David, you got your mic's open. You got anything else?
It's interesting because I've done large scale corporate transformation work. And when I say large scale, I'm talking British government. We did work with British Petroleum around their, Beyond Petroleum to a Better Planet, did the original work around Hewlett Packard's transformation, led to the acquisition of EDS. And I've worked with, I mean, paper companies. I've worked with, and the guys know, previous to this, I was CEO of a biotech company here in Dallas, working on cures for metastasizing cancer, which is, and working at an incredibly creative level. As I said, this one screams for transformation, yet it is, I haven't figured, I'll be honest with you, I've been doing this for 6-7 months. I still haven't figured it out. And I haven't. I mean, I can go in and, as I say, work with transformative technologies and ideas. And at this one, I'm still struggling with. And that's why
David, maybe you and I ought to sit together and brainstorm.
And that's why I'm down. Yeah, that's why I'm still doing 50 hours of prospecting every week, for God's sakes. And that's to get 3 conversations, and you're going to get 0, maybe 1 every.
You need what we used to call a process reengineering initiative.
Well, and you can't do it in this industry. I mean, I'll be straight.
Well, you never say you can't. Never say you can't.
I know where the industry could completely build itself. I know exactly what's coming and how to do it, but that's not this environment. I'll be honest with you.
Well, then it's time to move on.
Yeah, no, I'm between you and I'm kind of wrestling with that. Exactly the case. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay. It is a big challenge. Life is about challenge and support.
Oh, absolutely.
And as you know, you've done it before. And you know what the mantra, I'll be share with you. The mantra here is, well, if you're not successful, you're not working hard enough.
Well, yeah, I think it's time that you need some time with Janine.
Yeah, no, that's, I am just sort of at this point. I'll be straight. I'm full confession. I know if people here around here, they'll kind of go, "Oh my God!"
They're going, who's he talking to?
Yeah. Who's he talking to? Who's this guy? I mean,
talking to his shrink.
Yeah. So it must
Janine's his shrink today.
So I'm this is sort of a full disclosure. I'm bearing my soul, but yeah, I am having those moments because my wife, honestly, she sits at home and kind of goes, "Are you crazy? You're out of your mind."
This too shall pass. Just remember that.
When she heard when I was talking to this one woman, I broke up laughing. I finally get someone on the phone and she goes, "Well, I was looking for insurance." And I said, "You're not now?" She goes, "No, my boys are in prison." And I'm just like,
all right, so let's
don't do that when I'm drinking coffee.
A little bit away from insurance. I'm already wore out with it, and it's not even my job. So
right.
So let me bring it back to Janine. Anybody want to talk about anything but health insurance? Anybody got any other questions or thoughts or observations? I think there's a myriad of things. Or Janine, you want to bring us into contemplating something else? I've got something, but I want to give it.
Yeah, I do have a question for Janine.
Okay.
In answer to your thing, Janine, first of all, great presentation so far. You've got me riveted to the screen and taking notes faster than I ever have. What was your biggest challenge before you had all this process down pat? You had all these assistants. What was your biggest challenge?
The fact that I was living in a state of fear and terror almost every day, because I was recently divorced after a 30-year marriage to my college sweetheart. And I had 4 children that I had moved to a different state. And I found myself in a do or die situation. And I just felt like I just knew that this was the path I had to go on, because I refused to stop homeschooling my children. And I knew for their benefit and for the next generation, homeschooling was appropriate for my personality type as well as for them. And so that stubbornness is what got me through, the tenacity. But the biggest challenge was dealing with fear that was almost to the point of terror. Some mornings I would wake up at 2:30 in the morning, shaking and having no idea how I was going to make payroll, how I was going to make, this is the reality of being an entrepreneur. And we don't talk about it because we deal enough with those freaking demons at 2 and 3 in the morning. We don't need to be talking about them on a mastermind, but that's where I was. And now I'm at a point where I know my skill sets, I know my income streams, I know my cash flow index, I've got my profit and loss statements, but I finally have my accountant trained to speak to me in a way that's helpful to me. And it took 6 months to train my accountant to how to talk to me so I could take the data that he was saying that was beautiful on spreadsheets, but made no logical sense to my brain, to get him to do that. So that was my biggest challenge, was training the people around me to speak in a way that I could understand, because I can talk numbers till the cows come home, as long as it's 1.068 to the negative 23rd. But you put a dollar sign around it, you start massaging the numbers and start talking in terms that are accounting speak, and you lose me. And so that was those were my two biggest challenges.
Was there one aha moment where it became crystal clear in your mind what you had to do?
No.
Okay.
It was
That's
a
good.
process.
You're being honest.
It was a process. It was not, an angel. I kept waiting, but the angels never came. And I just had to, my dad was Navy. And so it was like, I just had to put my boots on and lace them up, and here we go. Another day, just trudge through the next day, and trudge through the next day, and trudge through the next day. And all of a sudden I started making headway. Yeah. That was in 2015.
That's actually doing my Warrior versus Zombie podcast. That's the fear. It's faith over fear. I mean, the thing is, at some point you have to decide you're going to, power through, and that you're going to have faith that there's going to be a return. But that's easier said than done. So thank you for sharing that. That was a good question, Randy. Randy, I always say, he knows all the questions to ask. He asks really good questions. That's a good reason why he's an asset to this mastermind and to what we do, is because he's got a whole list of questions. Doesn't mean he has the answers, but he has a whole list of questions. So, but that's the rest of us, right? The question I have is actually digital. The business cards, the implementing the work on your business thing. One of the reasons why I am so passionate about this new platform called Be Connected is because I have 100,000 plus probably across all platforms of inbound, of connections, people that are, hey, I want to talk to you. Can you do this? And I'm retired. Okay. I retired in 2005 from the corporate world. And I decided that but retirement doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what you want, when you want, with who you want, where you want, and having an impact first. And then if money follows, that's a beautiful thing. I have the luxury of doing that. However, I do want to have an impact. I do want to take my most valuable asset, my 4 hours a week working on my business or whatever, to leverage that to have more impact, to really touch more people. And there's ways to do that. And I get it. There's automations, there's this. How do you apply, or do you apply, other than kicking it off to 9 or whatever it is, VAs to do the work? That's basically creating a bigger company that you then manage that process too. So there's some working in your business that's now involved in working with those VAs, right? I mean, you're having to keep training them and working with them and that kind of thing. And if you say no, then we'll talk again, because I didn't give you a very pointed answer when you asked me my experience with one of your VAs. Okay. So I will, but maybe it's just the way I approach my audience. So that's a long question, but how do you react to that?
I ask you to reframe the question now that you've been able to get all that data out of your head. So what is it that you're really asking?
My real question is, how do I narrow, and this is, I got it in my head, because we've now identified one of my problems is I can see a picture in my head, and communicating it is not always that easy for me. So my real question is, how do I start taking and curating or paring down the noise of people that I could connect with or want to connect with me? How do you do that? Is that in your book? Is that?
No, that's not in my book. So to your point, you want to make sure that the people you talk to are servant leaders like yourself. That's how I set up myself. And that's why I'm attracted to masterminds like this, because there isn't a person on this call who doesn't want to serve the world and make it a better place. And that's what I love about people like you guys, and keep rocking. But as you know, when you open yourself up to the world, not everybody is of that mindset. So how do you cull the wheat from the chaff, as they say? And then what you do is you have these amazing virtual assistants who, as anybody is trying to connect with you, you have a series of automatic responses that they will type out, cut and paste and type out to those people to get them eventually onto a phone call with you. And they will self-select, because if they see you going through your messaging, and I have like 4 or 5 messages that go out over the course of a 3-month period of time. When somebody says, hey, I want to connect with you, this messaging kicks in, and the VA is Lynette. If you're on LinkedIn, you're talking to Lynette. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're on Facebook, you're talking. Yeah.
Out to me. So yeah, because we connected on LinkedIn, and she.
Right. And she's like, and I always tell them, I'm like, if somebody says, is this you, Janine? I said, fess up, say, no, this is Lynette. I'm helping Janine, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, always be honest. But the thing is that's how they're culling down the number of people that I get to meet. And then we have set in the calendar that I speak with anywhere from 8 to 15 new people a week. Okay. So I'm constantly fostering those relationships. And every once in a while, we have somebody that slips through the cracks where it's not inappropriate. But what's interesting is there's a personal level to it where they needed to hear something that I had to say so they could go on and have a better life. So they weren't a prospect, but human to human, they needed to talk to me for that human to human connection. And face it, it's not, business is 99.9% of our life, but we're still humans 100% of the time.
Well, I love that perspective. And you are exactly right when it comes to your assessment of this group. And frankly, that is one of the filters that I have is number one, automations never work with me, because I can sense them in a moment. And if I get somebody that looks interesting to me, like on LinkedIn, because I get no less than 35, 40 requests a day to, hey, let's have a one-to-one, let's do this, right? Let's, and it's like, oh, I really looked at your background and I really like you and blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, good. I might respond back or whether it's me or a VA, right? And say, great, what did you like? That might be the only and then if I don't get a response, then I know that's so your point is, if I can distill it down to at least my brain can understand, is that you have a process that your VAs are executing that you can define for them. And then that's an evolutionary process. Is that a fair way of saying it?
Yes, that's exactly what I did, because I did it. It's what I used before I hit my stage of almost burnout, before I went in and hired VAs. This was the stuff I was writing. That's why I'm saying it's my language, it's my script. It's not automation in the sense of like it's some bot talking to you. It's actually somebody entering this information in for you. And they do customize it depending upon the conversation they're having with people. But the only time it's ever a challenge for us is if somebody meets me in the real world, in the physical world, IRL. If they meet me in IRL and then they go on to LinkedIn and they're like, Janine, ? We met at such and such and so and so. And one of my VAs will then say, this is Lynette answering for Janine, and then moving forward with the conversation. So that's the only time we have issues.
I'm going to bring Janice back to the stage here, because knowing both of you now, I really want Janice to weigh in. And I know I'm not talking about the send cards and stuff like that, but I really want to talk about your perspective on relationships, because like you are pretty prevalent on LinkedIn. You do understand, about where we're going with the Be Connected platform, and you do in-person networking like I do in your area. So how do you guys process that together, since you know each other?
I'm not sure what that
Wasn't a good question.
well, you know what? I haven't actually done any in-person networking for 3 years, it seems like.
Oh, wow.
now. Yeah. And to be honest, I love networking online because I don't have to get out in my car and go and pay for parking and spend an extra hour here going and coming from events. And I still feel connected to people. I don't know about you, Janine, but for me, this works. It really does. And whether I've met the person through LinkedIn or through a referral from somebody else, I always make sure that I, 99% of the time, that I can have a video conversation with them. And that helps me connect.
Okay. What do you, Janine, is that within bounds? I mean, just this whole digital world that we're in now with the Zoom, of course, we're in different parts of the country, so we don't have, unless we want to get on a plane, we don't have much of a choice here. So it is a great asset. What, in terms of implementing the process that you're talking about, there's no real, you can just do it, I think, faster in the digital world. You just maybe still need to pay attention to. Do you use automations, by the way? You didn't.
Me?
Janine?
Oh, sorry.
Either one of you.
No.
Well, yeah. Janine?
I don't use automatic bots or anything like that. There's people behind the keyboard.
Okay. Yeah, that was just a curiosity. Okay. Anybody else have any? Randy, go ahead.
No, I was scratching the back of my head.
Oh, well, I was going to say your mic is open, so that's why I was.
I clicked something wrong. Sorry, apologize.
That's okay. Thanks, Janice. I just wanted to, I've learned a few things. Any other thoughts, Janine? We got about 10 minutes before we officially adjourn, but this has been incredible, been amazing. Any other things that we should be, that have occurred to you as we're asking I'm asking my dumb questions and we're going through this?
Well, I think interesting thing that you just said, and the Wizard of Oz comes to my mind. What we've had today, both with Janine and to some degree with Janice, is we've taken a look behind the curtain, and we've seen, how the real world works in industry, very allied, at least for how we have to do things. And I've learned a lot today from everybody on the call. So Janine, thanks very much. I really enjoyed the conversation. And Janice, thanks for what you've added. And David, you've got an interesting problem that it looks like these two ladies may have already solved in their industry. You have your own unique challenges, but I'd be willing to sit down with you since we're local. Anyway, thanks. That's not a commercial for me.
Okay. Ricky, you had opened your mic. You had a question or comment or?
Yes, I wanted to write down what she said about being, you do one thing and you're actually reacting to being, or what was the word she used? You've got too much on your plate. When David was talking.
Oh, inspiration versus motivation. It's an old definition I have. When you are in a challenge and you're in fear and you feel like, oh my gosh, this has happened, and you feel like you have to react now and you need to do something. That's called motivation, right? You're being motivated to do something. That is not a good place to respond from as an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, you want to react to a challenge through inspiration. Now, this takes more time and it takes a calm head. And so that's where I start teaching clients like breathing techniques, and some people decide to go into yoga, but you want to react to a challenge with inspiration. The only time motivation is appropriate is, I used to be a first responder. And so that's like, if somebody is hemorrhaging, if somebody is unable to breathe, if somebody's going to lose a limb, you act with motivation immediately and responsive. So my children have learned, I'll put my finger up like, just a second, And they'll go, but mom, and I'll go, is someone hemorrhaging? Is everyone able to breathe? Or, or is someone going to lose a limb? Because those are my motivators. Those are what I go for. But as an entrepreneur, I always try to make sure that I respond to challenge through inspiration. So you don't want to be motivated to do it. Now, motivational speakers, that's different. That's because that's a cultural thing. All right. I'm not busting on them.
So
Personally, the differences. Yeah.
If you're motivating out of fear, then that's a sign you're burned out.
Or if you are operating to a challenge, if you have a stimulus of some kind and you are operating out of like, I need to go do something now and I need action and I need to do it now, then that is a fear-based, that's your lizard brain dictating the action. And so I say fear, but some guys tell me, I'm not afraid, I just know I need to do something. All right. It's not fear, but it's the lizard brain kicking into your epinephrine cascade, right? But if you have a challenge and you go, I need to go think about this for a minute, and you step back, that will assure that you will then be able to react out of inspiration. It's the difference between motivation and inspiration and what part of your brain you're operating on. And if you have your epinephrine cascade has been activated and your endorphins are kicked in and you're feeling like, I got to go, I got to do something now, then go for a walk. Don't answer that email. Get yourself into your analytical brain. So it's basically you're shifting where the energy is in your brain.
Brilliant. Thank you. The good answer. And again, it's always fascinating to me how aligned, when I meet new people along the road or on the journey, how much alignment we have. You even use my term. I don't ever want to be a motivational speaker. I want to be an inspirational speaker. I want you to work from within, not get you so motivated that you go buy my program or you go do this or you go do that. It may be good for you, but I don't want you to operate in that way. I want you to step back and think about it and stuff. Some people that are in sales would say that's not the right way to do things, but otherwise. So that's brilliant. Love that. Okay, so again, let's give Janine a virtual clap here. You've already heard some great kudos, and I do appreciate I do appreciate your willingness to serve our audience. Janine will be back on Warrior versus Zombie on the 30th of June at 11 a.m. for that show. And so if you want to hear more of her story, I already picked up bits of that. Looking forward to introducing her to you if you're in that audience, or the rest of those in that audience. And so I appreciate her. And Janine, thank you for serving.